Hi everyone, this is Alessio. In this video, I'm going to show you how I set up my charts for trading the markets. So to show you and give you an idea of the settings and the indicators that I use, and just briefly explain to you why I use them. Now the charts I'm using here are given to you by ETX, and they are free, and you can get them too when you open an account with them. I do also subscribe to a paid charting software as well, but if you are looking for something free and something simple to use, then these are the ones I would recommend to you. If you're in the UK, you can go to getetx.com. If you live outside the UK, for example in Europe or in the US, then you can see my recommended charts and brokerages on my website, which is on leadingtrader.com/trading tools. Okay? And that's what you see on the screen right there. Okay, let me show you how to set up your chart. So the first thing that happens is when you bring up a chart with ETX is they automatically and by default set the settings to 10 minutes and candlesticks. Now, you can change this, and I will change it because I don't really trade on 10-minute charts. But for the time being, I'm going to set it to daily chart, okay, just for the time being. And we're going to change this to bar charts, which is HLOC, okay? Now, as you can see, I don't really like to trade on a white background. I usually set my charts to black backgrounds, okay? It just makes me see things a bit better. So what I'm going to do here is go to charts, top of the page. I'll go to chart settings, okay? And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on chart, and I'm going to change the style from the chart background. I'm going to change this from white to black, okay? And you'll see why in a second, all right? So choose a black background, and then I'm just going to change the grid to something like dark gray, and I'm going to change the crosshair color, which is the cursor you see on the screen, to also dark gray as well, okay? And then really just press save, all right? And you can also change the color of the bars here, by the way. So you notice the bars are set to green, but if you didn't want to choose green, you can just go to HLOC, which is the bar chart you see here, and you can change them to any other color you like by just clicking on that, okay? And the same goes the candlesticks charts as well. Okay, so I'm just going to exit this for the moment. All right, so the next step is I want to actually put on some indicators on my chart. So the next step, I'm just going to go to Studies, the top of the page. One thing I really do want to stress at the beginning, guys, is that it is important that you don't overcomplicate things by putting a lot of indicators on your chart. Certainly, I've seen a lot of new traders, a lot of beginner traders do this, which is they put a lot of indicators on the chart because they think that more indicators means better trading. That is not the case. And I can tell you after years of experience that the one thing that makes good traders and the best traders stand apart is by keeping things simple. And I would really stress you keep things very simple, guys. All right? So first thing I'm going to do is put a couple of moving averages here in my chart, just a few moving averages. The first one I'm going to use an exponential moving average. Okay, I'm just going to click that one. And if you've seen my videos before, you notice that I keep a bunch of very important key moving averages on my chart. The first one is a 21-day exponential moving average. Exponential just really just means that there's a faster moving averages, which puts a lot of weight on the recent prices. Okay, so exponential 21 moving average, and I'm going to change the style to blue. Okay, just going to click blue here. There it is. So that's just put here, close that. Let's put a blue line here on my chart. And this 21 moving average just simply means that the price is averaged for every 21 periods, or 21 days in this case, to the past. Okay? Then I'm going to put a couple of simple moving averages on my charts. I'm going to go to Studies, and down the list of simple moving average. Okay? And here I'm going to choose a 50 moving average, which is used by a lot of hedge funds, and change the color of this to white. All right? And then press close. And then do the same thing. Put another moving average here as well, simple moving average. This time I'm going to use a 200 moving average, all right? And I'm going to choose yellow for this one. No particular reasons why I choose these colors. Now, the 200 moving average is used by a lot of funds out there, and you will find that this provides a very good area of support and resistance when you are trading. For example, you'll notice here that the market here on the euro hit this 200 moving average, and actually that became a resistance level here. Same here, found support at these areas, okay? Okay, now I'm going to show you how to put a few momentum oscillators on your chart. And momentum oscillators are just a good way of seeing the direction and the force of the trend in the market. So the ones I use here, I don't actually use the momentum oscillator itself, but I use a different momentum oscillator like MACD, or the one that's given to you here by ETX called Awesome Oscillator. Now, MACD just stands for Moving Average Convergence Divergence, and a lot of charts do give you this. If you're going to use a MACD, then the settings I would use for the short-term setting The short-term settings would be like 8 and 21, which are Fibonacci numbers. And you go to styles here, and you just change it from lines to histogram. The histogram settings actually make it easier to see the direction of and force of the market trend. So that's the one I would use for MACD. But I personally prefer the Awesome Oscillator, which sounds kind of quirky, but I do prefer this one. And the simple reason is, I'll show you in a second. So the settings I would use for this is 5 and 21. 5 and 21. And just, I'm going to change the color here into a light blue. Okay, light blue and red. Okay. And the simple reason I like to use the Awesome Oscillator given to you by ETX, just because it gives you a color distinction when the momentum dissipates. As you can see, the momentum here is rising, so that corresponds to the market here rising here as well. And then the momentum here dissipates, turns into red, and that's when the market here starts to retrace. Okay, I'm a visual person, and if you are a visual person, it just makes things easier to see when you're trading. Same thing here. As you can see, the market here is falling. That's given to you in red. Then when the market dissipates, the momentum here, downward momentum dissipates. As you can see, the market just starts to retrace upwards. That's also colored blue for you. It's a different color. So that just makes things easier to see. All right. Okay. Now I'm just going to get rid of this MACD here for the moment. By the way, these settings I'm giving to you are for the short-term momentum. Okay, the short-term momentum. Then I'm going to put here a long-term, slower momentum here. And slower momentum, and I'll show you why I use this as slower momentum. The settings here I'm going to use for this one is going to be 21 and 89. All right. And I'm going to change this to yellow. All right. Just one color. All right. The simple reason I like to use the slower momentum setting here. By the way, if you are going to use a MACD, if you use a MACD, then by all means do so. You can use settings of 20 and 43.9. Okay. So for MACD, because most charts obviously have MACD on them, use 20, 43, and 9. Okay, but for the moment, I'm just going to leave it on the Awesome Oscillator setting that I'm using here. Now, this particular slower momentum that I'm using, this slower setting, it's a good way of really using as a directional filter and just seeing the path of least resistance, okay, the main force of the trend. And as long as this stays below zero, it gives me a directional bias in the markets. For example, if you look here on Goldman Sachs charts, okay, this is the chart of Goldman Sachs, and just notice that throughout this entire period that the Goldman Sachs market is falling, all right, you can see this particular oscillator's slower momentum setting is below zero. Okay, it's all below zero. It's all negative. So really, in this particular period, I'm just looking to do short setups or short trades. I'm not looking to buy into Goldman Sachs, but only here when you can see down on the right-hand side of the chart, you see the momentum oscillator that went above zero, and that really just gives me a directional change in the market trend. All right, so I'm going to look more for long or buy setups here than short. Now, one thing I want to mention is this 21 moving average, this blue line that you see here, is also known as a point of value or the mean average in the markets. So markets do come and test this particular moving average quite a lot, and you'll see the significance of this in other videos that I'm going to put on this site and other videos I'm going to do for you. Now, the only other indicator that I recommend you could probably put on your chart is the average to range. And the average to range is quite a useful indicator. I set this to 14 setting, which just simply means what it does is it measures the range of the markets. It looks back 14 periods, or 14 days in this case, okay, and averages out the range of the market prices for the last 14 bars. And that's what you see here. That's what the reading is on the chart down here. And you'll see the significance of this particular data and this indicator in other videos that I'll show you. Now, the other indicator that I quite like to use on my charts is the Keltner channels. Okay, and let me just put them on my chart here for you, and I'll show you why. Go on Studies, and you go on Keltner channels here. Okay, and when it just comes up, all right, you just put the settings to 21 as the EMA period. ATR multiplier, leave it as 2, and ATR period, put this to 14. Okay, and I'm just gonna choose a red color here. All right, there we go. And the reason I quite like the Keltner channel is because it really does embody the price movement, so it does kind of contain, as you will see here on this chart, given the fact that the prices of markets, whether it's you're looking at euro, whether you're looking at indexes or stocks, they do fluctuate up and down, but what the Keltner channels do is they do contain the majority of the price movement, about 70 to 80% of the time. All right, so I like to see what the extreme movements of the price are. Some people like to use Bollinger Bands. I like to use particularly this one, the Keltner channels. I do find it quite reliable. Now, the only other thing I want to talk to you about is that I also use another set of indicators, which is called the squeeze indicators, okay? Now, if you haven't seen that video yet, it's on my website. Just go to leadingtrader.com/squeeze. I don't want to go through it all over again in this particular video because it's already in a separate video, but you're more than welcome to go and have a listen. Go to leadingtrader.com/squeeze. But the thing is, I have actually saved it here. I've saved the settings here on this chart. One thing I also want to mention is once you've done all this, do save the settings. And the way you do this is you go in settings, you go to chart template, and you say save as a new template, okay? And then you can rename it. Go to save a new template, go to manage templates, and go to rename it, okay? You can rename it. This is chart new, whatever you want to call it. And then that will save the settings there for you, so you won't lose this. And really, the squeeze setup that I mentioned to you in the previous video, which you can go and have a look, really that's composed of what you see here is Bollinger Bands. Okay, so you see Bollinger Bands, which are shown to you in blue. Okay, Keltner channels, different settings here, by the way. Okay, so, and yes, I'm also using here the awesome oscillator, which you can use a MACD instead of an awesome oscillator if you wish, and the long term and the slower momentum here as well for you, as you can see there. Okay, now the settings for all this, I'll put them on the website so you can have a look, and hope this has been useful to you. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to send them over to me. Go to facebook.com/Alessio Rastani. That's my Facebook page. You can just post your questions on there for me if you have any. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Bye for now.